Hi, I'm Obi. Today we're going to be talking about two Sherlock Holmes themed anime. One of them is Kabukichou Sherlock, and one of them is Moriarty the Patriot. If you're not here because it's Sherlock-based anime, then I don't know why you're here, because it's why I'm here. First, let's talk about the one that didn't work and why. And that one is the one that's hard to pronounce. So we're just going to call it the modern one. So the modern retelling of Sherlock focuses more on Watson. It's got a lot more blood and violence than I thought it would, given the fact that it doesn't even have a PG-13 rating. One of the first things I noticed is the inclusion of a transgender character. What I didn't like about that is how they were represented. It definitely is more of a caricature take than like a true good representation. And that kind of thing continues throughout the show. We see a gay couple, several different transgender people, and or cross-dressers, depending on how they feel about it. Not that it's defined in the show, because they clearly don't care. And it's just a little bit uncomfortable. So the singer in the beginning does serve a purpose, at least, in the story, instead of just being a set piece. They give out the cases to the detectives. Given that this one person gives out all the same cases, it isn't very hard for Watson, who is a relatively plain guy and apparently a doctor or a nurse or something, to find these detectives. He happens to be looking for Sherlock Holmes. We don't know why in this episode, and I'm not gonna figure out why. You can if you want. At one point, there's this moment that feels like a twist in the episode. Some dude deletes some information off of a phone that belongs to a victim in a crime, right? I was thinking either he was involved in the crime or he was trying to like get ahead, and then he was gonna get killed because he was gonna figure it first and they weren't gonna have the evidence, they were gonna have to go backwards, right? Yeah, it ain't that deep. He was just trying to cheat in a very lame way, not in the way that was interesting in the story. One thing the show did that was kind of interesting that I didn't expect was the portrayal of Sherlock, because in this version, he is absolutely bonkers, and I am talking like 3,000% bonking off wall. I think it's the most wild interpretation I've seen of Sherlock Holmes. Some of the visuals are cool in his scenes. You know, you can get cool visuals for a dime a dozen in other shows. It's not worth it. So basically, by the end, they find a fake, and it leads to Watson running over Sherlock on the way to catch the criminal. Sherlock ends up in a full body cast, and there's a joke at the end about how he has to pee in a jug. The whole thing is very cringy. There's not a lot of like highbrow, there's not a lot of depth. If you like cringe comedy, low-key, this is the show for you. It's just weird. So, back to that show. I'm not watching any more of it for you. That's it. We're not gonna talk about it anymore. It's no good. Now, the good one is Moriarty the Patriot. So the first difference to note in Moriarty the Patriot is the setting. And the setting is really fun because it's Victorian England, and ooh, do I love it. The industrial feel, the coats, the hats, the shirts, you know, the whole bit. I just love it. And that's going to attract, you know, Black Butler fans, people like that. And there's not as many children in this, so that'll be more comfortable for everybody else involved. So I'm pretty excited about just the setting. Just the setting alone already had me hooked. And then we meet Moriarty.
人の所業とは思えぬことをするのが人間というものさ。
We're gonna talk about the first 3 episodes, right? But freaking Sherlock Holmes doesn't even show up in the first 3. And from what I can tell, he looks like a freaking manhwa main character. Like, I'm just saying, this show sells itself multiple times. The opening is actually good, which is rare. I know, it's weird. I don't normally... I think it's because I have such a habit of skipping over openings or being so spoiled by the anime that I used to watch. Like, Fullmetal Alchemist has bangers, just solid openings, and they're all classic. So, like, I guess I'm just really picky, and this one sold me. I definitely like it. It gives me, like, the choral elements of Visual Kei. Like, none of the screaming, but it has that feel, you know, of Visual Kei. So, this story is rated R. Unlike the first one, which had no rating because it was just dumb cringe comedy that didn't actually matter, regardless of the fact that it implied assault and violence and genital mutilation and a lot of other things in that first episode. But this one does have a rating, and we do see it in the first episode because the first scene is a child running from what is assumedly an attacker of some kind. So almost instantly we learn two things about this from Moriarty. And that is that the children are commoners who are probably being attacked by nobility, and there is an implication that they are being either assaulted prior to their murder or eaten afterwards. It's unclear and it's not directly stated, but there is some phrasing that's kind of odd.
肉は子ウサギのものがお好きでしょ？まだ成長しきっていない柔らかで血が滴るように新鮮なのをゆっくり時間をかけて召し上がるのが
Some of the imagery leans more into assault, some of the wordage leans more into eating. Unclear. Either way, rated R for a reason. And you don't visually see that. You just kind of get the idea, and there's some blood here and there. But even the implication, I think, is pretty intense. Pretty quickly, he figures out who's the culprit. Now, the most impactful moment comes not from learning this, but from what happens next. Because Moriarty isn't just about solving mysteries. It's also about justice. But not in an idealistic sense, so much as a very literal eye for an eye, bones for bones, blood for blood. And so what he does through Albert is make an offer to one of the parents of these children that essentially results in him personally killing the noble that killed his son, in like a sense of true justice being served, literally a life for a life, and as a way for him to mourn, you know. And it's really just this dark, kind of like intimate moment at the end, and it's so jarring. It's such a beautiful hook, and it's so not what you expect, and I love that. In fact, it kind of makes you regret doing this whole preview thing, because I kind of wish I could just let you experience that. I mean, you're still gonna love it. You're still gonna love it, but ooh, what a moment. And in those kind of moments, we find out that Moriarty is not a detective, he is a crime consultant. And so his thing is that he sets people up to commit crimes in such a way that it benefits the people or individuals who are suffering because of the acts of nobility. So that's super cool, love that. All of that's in the first episode, so that happens really fast. Now, that might be concerning because you don't want a mystery show to be paced like that very much. Like, it's kind of sells itself short. Like, it has to go real fast and it misses some of the beats and it kind of tells itself before it has any build-up, right? But the next arc takes 2 episodes, and so you could easily assume that the next will be 2 or 3 or 4, or it'll just be the whole thing. So, and as we include Sherlock, undoubtedly it will go into more. So, I think that's more of a pilot situation than like a true telling of how the show will be paced, so. Alright, so in the second episode, we find out that Albert is the legitimate Moriarty son, and that R. William and Luis are illegitimate sons. Not only that, they weren't treated very well, the 2 illegitimate sons. The butler was mean to them, not to mention the rest of the family, besides Albert. We quickly find out the reasons for this. We also find out a major twist. William is also the name of the other legitimate son of the family. The other little William, the true Moriarty William, is a classist little twerp. He's an absolute monster. And we find out that Albert was the one who met the boys first at an orphanage. So there's a flashback within a flashback. Before they were a part of the Moriarty family, Albert was the one who met them and kind of became engrossed in R. William's intelligence and these two boys' ability to survive despite their circumstances. So the head of the Moriarty family, he is taunted into a situation in which he decides that he will bring an orphan into his family. Since Albert is the person who interacts with the public more than the rest of the family, because they don't give a damn with the public, he asked Albert to pick the children to bring in, and of course, the goal was one, but he picks R. William and Louise. Hence, how they become the illegitimate children is that they're adopted. This is merely an act of false charity. It does not make them heirs or anything. They're still two in the line. They're really nothing more than, like, unloved dogs. Albert, of course, doesn't feel that way, but the other ones do. It kind of pushes Albert to his limits in the third episode. So the little monster, William Moriarty proper, he gets the idea put into his head by his mother that if the two orphan children are caught stealing, then they can be sent away from the family without any repercussions for the Moriarty family in terms of, like, backing out on their charity. So William, the little shit, he decides that he's going to plant some false evidence in a way to frame the two children. Well, they catch him. Not only do they catch him, Albert's there. And this is whenever they enact their plan to restart the Moriarty family with only the few moral ones. So they literally have Albert commit fratricide and burn the house down, leaving them as the sole survivors, the three of them. And because they were adopted legally, they count as the family. And so the Moriarty house becomes a house of resolve and very intense ideals burned into them. The very ending scene is pretty funny.
でも本当に温かいご家庭だったんですね。
Like, get it? Warm household? It's a warm household because it was on fire. I love it. Now, you may have noticed that I didn't mention the studios for these anime, which I usually do at the top of a description because it's just more comfortable that way usually. But this time, I've put it off because explaining these two studios is an interesting task. Because it is not two studios, it is one. Both of these anime, both good and bad, come from the same studio. Production IG. So, Production IG is a pretty big studio. Like, it's got a lot under its belt, and it's done a lot of things. I think they're into the hundreds in terms of their anime, for sure. But what's so strange to me is that instead of making a business decision about the situation and choosing a Sherlock Holmes adaptation to go with, they just decided to do both. Because they were very close together. They're like a year apart. They just took the throwing spaghetti against the wall method to business, and I guess it worked because I'm talking about both of them, so. And I mean, given how damn big their anime library is, like, that might just be their method. Like, what's weird about them airing now, because they are airing very recently and now, is that it's 2020. It was 2019, 2018 whenever these were airing. 8 to 10 years since Sherlock Holmes has gone into the public domain. Robert Downey Jr.'s films were in 2009, and Benedict Cumberbatch's BBC Sherlock was in 2010. So, like, why now? Like, the resurgence has already happened. I mean, I'm happy about Moriarty the Patriot, even though it came out at a weird time. Honestly, I'm happy it came out now rather than some other time, to be honest. What's weird about discovering it now is I feel like I'm on the cusp of finding out, you know, some kind of conspiracy, cracking some kind of formula, but I feel like it's just something dumb. Like, the executive's daughter only just now found out about BBC Sherlock and is like, oh, Papa, make me an anime Sherlock. Like, I feel like that's what happened. Because it's such a weird time, you know? Like, I'm just saying. It's very possible that this is all just because of some ultra fan. And you know what? They were right to demand a second chance because that first one wasn't a very good show. They deserve better. Alright, I'm Obi. That's it. Which is a code name for this particular mass murderer or whatever the heck. Murder hobo? Nope, that's not right. That's not right at all. Serial killer, that's the word. Damn, is William charming. And so they literally have Albert commit... I learned the word. I learned it. Fratricide. I feel like I cracked a code or something. Does this work? Look with the green hair? No. Is it fun? Yes. So I found these in my car, right? I had to go dig for them because I knew where they were. I just took a moment. But I also found all my sunglasses and I didn't realize how many I had. And I also broke a pair and I'm also looking at them like, is that a look? Or does it just look stupid? And also, isn't there an anime character who wears like one eyeglass